event, of course, covering your Q4 full year report sent out yesterday, but as the situation is with you, it's maybe not the financials that's the most interesting. We have a lot of questions, so I think we will get very well around the case. But of course, that's the occasion why we are doing this. But let's take a broader look also at your company. To help us through it, we're joined by CEO Magnus Corfitzen. As always, there's a box down below. Ask question during the presentation. We got a lot in advance, and we need, unfortunately, a little bit after half to break off the event. So let's see what we can catch. But for now, I will leave the floor to you, Magnus.
Yeah, thank you, Mikkel, and welcome everyone. It's great to be here and give you all an update on the Q4. So I will be making forward-looking statements on my presentation here. So Ascelia Pharma, we are focused on identifying, developing, and commercializing novel drugs within the rare oncology setting. And we are a Swedish company based in Malmö, traded on Nasdaq Stockholm since 2019. We have 2 drugs in our pipeline. The lead program, and that's why I'm going to spend most of the time today, is Orviglance, and first-in-class diagnostic drug. We've come very far. We are in the FDA review process, and we expect a decision made on approvability by the FDA around the 3rd of July this year. The other program, also very exciting, but earlier stage, Oncoral, which is a patented tablet formulation of irinotecan with potential in various solid tumors, gastric cancer being the lead indication as of now. So strong pipeline, and we'll focus on Orviglance today. And the reason we want to focus on Orviglance is that we've come very far, and it's a really exciting opportunity. And what excites us and others about it is that we address a very well-defined unmet medical need within liver imaging. That's important for cancer patients, and in particular patients with severe renal impairment. It's an $800 million global addressable opportunity. We have commercial scale manufacturing in place. We have an extensive clinical program with 9 individual studies and very good results, in particular also in the phase 3 trial. And as mentioned, we have submitted the NDA. I'll come back on the timeline and the specifics later in the presentation. Our clearly stated strategy is that we will commercialize with a partner. The process to find a partner is ongoing, and we'll talk more about that as well later in the presentation and in the Q&A session. So fourth quarter was a very exciting quarter for us with a major milestone of the FDA acceptance. And that's called, in some phrases, it's called the Day 74 letter, 74 days after a submission of the file, which was in September last year. So that means the FDA has reviewed the application and considered it to be of sufficient quality and content that it warrants sort of a full deep dive review, which is obviously a major positive. We were expecting and hoping that, of course, but it's a very important milestone. We also filed a new patent application for Orviglance relating to the manufacturing process. In part of the manufacturing development, we've made a number of insights and ways to optimize and control the manufacturing, and we think that is very important IP that could provide extended protection for Orviglance. We also announced that we would have a CFO, Anton Hansson, join the company. We announced that in Q4, and a few weeks ago he had his first day in the company, and very happy with having him join us and be on the journey ahead of us as we are heading into sort of a transformative 2026 with key milestones. There was a small amount of shares issued in relation to the incentive program, long-term incentive program in November, and we also announced a nomination committee, so a committee appointed by the largest shareholders that will provide recommendation for the annual general meeting this year. So a busy quarter. And here, after the quarter in January, we announced that Julie will be leaving Ascelia, our Deputy CEO, to head up a CEO position in another company. So Julie's been with us for 6 years and been very active in various fields. So we are happy for her and on her new opportunities and wish her best of luck in that. And she's with the company She will start her new position in early April, and she's ensuring sort of a smooth handover period. So everything is working well there. So now moving into the pipeline, we will start with Orviglance, and many of you will be familiar with Orviglance, but for those of you that are more new to the story, the key problem that we're solving is part of a major problem in cancer care, cancer in the liver, in particular liver metastasis. When cancer starts in one organ and metastasizes, spreads to the liver, is a major problem. So what is the gold standard today is an MRI, and with using gadolinium, which is a heavy metal, toxic heavy metal. It's put in a chelate chemical structure to minimize the toxicity. But unfortunately, in patients with severe renal impairment, there is a risk of a potentially fatal side effect called nephrogenic systemic fibrosis, and that related to the gadolinium. And because Orviglance is based on manganese, this risk is not existing with Orviglance. We have orphan drug designation from the FDA for use in liver imaging in patients with severe renal impairment. So we have well-defined unmet medical need, accepted in clinical practice and in regulatory settings, and that's why we have a very strong, unique offering to this group of patients. So this unmet medical need translates into an $800 million global addressable market opportunity. Almost half of that is in the US, and we've been focused on the US opportunity in terms of the development and commercial preparations. We've also stated that we will commercialize through partners, both in US and in other geographies. Overall, when we think about the US market, this is the patient that we're targeting is a small subset of the overall cancer population, but it's about 50,000 patients a year with about 100,000 procedures that could potentially be addressed by Orviglance. What is also interesting is that these patients, because they're very sick, suffering both severe renal disease and cancer, very often they are at some of the major medical centers. So 400 healthcare providers have 75% of the patient population in the US, which gives us the opportunity, or the partners' opportunity, to address a lot of these patients through a sort of a very focused commercial effort. We're on top of doing a lot of market research to understand the patient volume and the patient flow, patient journey. We've done extensive work in terms of understanding the pricing and reimbursement opportunity. Based on this work, we have identified a pricing benchmark for other innovative diagnostic products in the range of $3,000 to $4,500. It clearly proves that there is a good pricing opportunity for innovative diagnostics if they provide real value to patients, which we certainly believe that Orviglance does. So we are focusing on the patients with the severe renal impairment. That's where the gadolinium agents have a black box warning. That's the indication we go for. On top of this concern and issues with gadolinium, there are concerns about the fact that every time you inject gadolinium, there is deposition of gadolinium. Most of it is excreted from the patient, but there is deposition in bone and skin, as well as the brain and other organs. And that is something that is being evaluated to understand what are the clinical implications of this. Today, it's not fully understood. Another growing concern, and where more and more data is coming out, is that tons of gadolinium is being used in medical imaging. And because the gadolinium, most of it is excreted through the urine, it goes into our sewage system and drinking water. The concentration of gadolinium is low, so therefore it's very difficult to remove the gadolinium from the drinking water, which means that it's perpetually accumulating, and the increase in drinking water is quite significant over the last few decades. Again, that's an important concern, especially for the longer term sustainability. So the way that these dynamics play out is that obviously we're leading the pack with an FDA review of a manganese agent. GE Healthcare is developing an intravenous injectable manganese agent, not liver specific like ours. They have completed phase 1, So they are clearly also in the direction of finding alternatives to gadolinium. Some of the other gadolinium manufacturers are developing lower dose gadolinium, so they still use gadolinium, but have optimized the formulation so that they're able to use roughly half dose, but having similar image quality. So all of this plays into the same, you would say, overall trend, macro trend, that there is a recognition that alternatives to gadolinium are needed, and using less gadolinium is better than using more. So we are happy to be leading this with the NDA review process that we have now with Orviglance. So one thing is getting the approval. We're well on track there. I'll come to that in a minute. But obviously, the key thing is to help patients out there. And we will need a partner to drive the commercialization. We've stated that clearly, that is our strategy. The process is ongoing. We have, we think, a very attractive asset, highly differentiated. There's nothing out there like Orviglance. And we have shown that we have strong clinical data. There's a good you say commercial opportunity, both in terms of patient volume and value per dose. And we see a number of relevant partners that could drive the launch and the successful commercialization of Orviglance. Could be manufacturers of gadolinium products, could be other companies in the gadolinium space, it could be specialty pharma companies with sales forces at hospitals. So we think that we have a good range of potential partners. We're also talking to multiple partners who have expressed clear interest in Orviglance, and that we think would be strong commercialization partners, and these discussions are progressing. So very happy with that progress and the outlook for getting a deal done. Switching gears from the commercial side to the regulatory side, as mentioned, we have 9 clinical studies completed, so almost 300 patients and healthy volunteers tested. So we have I think a very solid database, both in terms of the efficacy, the visualization. We also see detection of more lesions in the liver, in particular smaller lesions. And then we have a good safety profile in these very sick patients. We see some gastrointestinal side effects, nausea, diarrhea, mostly mild, which is to be expected in this population and with such a product. So nothing serious. We think this is a really good package we have. So one of the things that came out, obviously, was from the phase 3 trial, is what you see here, is that to the right you see the efficacy, the primary endpoint, and you see the improvement. So this is a score that is the Orviglance score minus the comparator, which is the unenhanced score, clearly above 1, which is a sort of an important improvement from a clinical perspective. And you see the 95% error bars, very far from the 0 line, which means that we have a high statistical significance. You can see the images illustration from one of the patients in the trial, and sort of anecdotally and kind of visually, it shows a very strong enhancement of the visualization, which is represented in the overall scores. As mentioned, we have submitted the new drug application on the 3rd of September last year. We got the Day 74 letter, acceptance of the filing from the FDA announced on 15th of November. So we are in good place in the regulatory process. The way such a process works is that we make the submission, and the FDA team is reviewing the application, which is a lot of information. They will ask us a number of questions throughout the process, and they continually sort of send questions, and we respond to those questions. So far, we are very happy with the interaction with the FDA, and feel we are in a good place and optimistic about a positive outcome. That concludes the Orviglance story. So briefly on Oncoral. So Oncoral is a tablet formulation of irinotecan. Irinotecan is a chemotherapeutic drug, very potent, but also a very strong safety, you would say, side effect profile like any other chemotherapeutic agent. What we can do and where we can make a difference is that instead of a dose, very large dose every 3rd week, we can give daily dosing. There's a lot of data supporting that has potential for both better efficacy and better safety and that's what we want to demonstrate with Oncoral. Here is some of the data from a phase 1 study that we did, where we show that by giving daily doses, we give a comparable amount of irinotecan over a period of time as with the infusion product. And what we also saw indications is that we saw sort of a better safety profile, in particular neutropenia, depletion of white blood cells. So we think that is very encouraging. We also saw activity, patient stable disease in very sick patients and patients where they've gotten the intravenous irinotecan and progressed on that. So I think encouraging signs, and we're excited to move on. Initially, we look at gastric cancer, but we will there's potential in a number of other tumor types as well. Just to round up, and time is flying quickly. So in terms of the quarterly report, we had an operating loss of about 16 million in Q4. We are on a lower run rate now in the last couple of quarters compared to previously, reflecting that we have completed the NDA file and submission, which is obviously a lot more work than responding to questions, even though they can be extensive as well. So we have financing until into Q4 this year. So we had 50 million at the end of last year. So overall, in a sound financial position with an expected FDA decision in the middle of the year. We have the 2 tracks here to drive value. One is getting the drug approved. We've submitted, we got the Day 74 letter and a PDUFA date in July. Everything is on track there. We also work on maximizing the commercial potential, working with key opinion leaders and other preparations for the launch. That is on track. And then the process for getting a partnership on board is also on track and progressing as we speak. So with that, I'd like to open up to any questions.
Perfect. Let's jump into it. There's a lot on the partnering. We will cover that by some angles, but I think there was also a very good one. You were at the JPM, the biggest conference there. Some feedback you got with there from their investors, potential partners. Can you talk a little bit about the talks you had in this JPM conference, and what was it surrounding? So I know it's a little bit of a broad one, but I think it is nice to hear what you were talking about over there and what you were met with.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to elaborate on that, and you know, let me start with a sort of a caveat. I think it's partnering is super important. We're very focused on getting a deal done, and we're making good progress. It's also, I mean, it's not only our investors who are listening to what, you know, to this, it's also some of the potential partners that we're talking to. So it's very much in the interest of all shareholders to make sure that we do the negotiations in the best possible way and not give away sort of negotiation chips to potential partners, but that we keep the relevant information internally. Having said that, I'm happy to sort of elaborate on where we are. So at JP Morgan, and you know, it's always good to be there, always interesting, good dynamic, and an opportunity to meet a lot of different companies, also very senior representatives from the different companies. And I think that's really what sets JP Morgan Week apart from a lot of other conferences. So we definitely were there, had meetings, and I think what we have experienced and also put that in the Q4 report is that the Day 74 letter, the filing acceptance from the FDA, is a clear and important milestone. We were very optimistic in advance, but nice to see. But I think on the potential partner side, they see it as a clear recognition that, you know, we're doing really good quality work. This is thorough and credible. And you know, we're a small company. We are in the order of 10 people in the company. We're obviously working with consultants, but demonstrating that we meet this milestone and that we are solid on the science is an important part of the negotiation process as well. So I think that it's fair to say that has been kind of recognized among the potential partners that we are speaking to.
Yeah, perfect. And then there's a little bit of a question on the timeline. Approval midsummer launch. Is that possible when you haven't had a partner in Q3 and Q4? are you giving something away by negotiating on the timeline, or do you still think it's possible to catch this timeline in the second half, even if you haven't signed up a partner yet?
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I think I'm not. I want to get the right partnership for Ascelia, somebody who can drive Orviglance launch in the best possible way. Obviously, more time is always better than less time, but I think on the other hand, when you have less time, then you tend to be more focused and pull resources together in a different way than if you feel that you are okay on time, right? So I think there are some dynamics on the partner side that would be different depending on the timeline to approval. The other part, I mean, an important part of the reason why we're taking a partner on board, that's our strategy, is that all the capabilities that are important for launch, they should already be in place with a partner. There may be some product-specific knowledge with Orviglance that they will have to learn, and we will teach them, and our extra KOL networks will support as well there. So there's a learning process, of course, on the product, but all the capabilities will be in place. So from that regard, I think we're in a really good place. I don't think that's not causing any stress. Doesn't mean that it will take forever to get a deal done. I certainly don't hope so. But I think it's not. I mean, we're not getting nervous in terms of this jeopardizing the launch or anything like that. We think we're in a good place. It's important to get the right partner and get the right structure in place, and we're on our way to do that.
And then maybe attack it from another angle, because I know I have to protect yourself in your negotiation. I'm not going to get much more from you, but key hurdles, de-risking potential partners. What do you see as the key hurdles for them or you becoming a final agreement?
It depends on which partner we are speaking to, and they. It's like when people are looking at a house and thinking about buying a house. Some people like the garden, some people don't like the garden, right? Some people like the kitchen, some people don't like the kitchen. So it's similar here. I think it's a little bit also a factor of their existing product portfolio in terms of what they're thinking. It's maybe some challenges they've had with other products that influence where they put more attention in the dialogue with us. So it's not like we have one common theme that is kind of a big issue for everybody. It's kind of it's a little bit mixed, which I think is a good sign. It shows that we have a good solid package all around. But obviously, there's always going to be something. When you look at something, there's always going to be the most challenging topic. So I think so we have potential partners that we talk to that have absolutely no concern on one topic where that is the biggest concern for another company. So I think that illustrates quite well that it's not. We have a good all-around package, and we'll get there. But then we'll it requires more work.
And then regarding the review with the FDA, have you had a 5-month review? I don't fit it in the timeline, but there's a question here, and is there actually something like that on the orphan drugs status approval process?
Yeah, so there is. So we're following. We've not applied for fast track, which sort of compressed the review timeline, which has some advantages. On the other hand, we think the most important thing is to get through the process and have as much time as possible to respond to the FDA questions. And so I think from that perspective, the process is like any other drug. In the FDA process, they have an internal. I think that's what this question is referring to. There's the FDA has a mid-cycle review, which is 5 months after submission, which should have been Tuesday this week. And that's a meeting where the FDA review team is having a conversation about where they are and what the questions and so forth.
Yeah.
It's not a you would say an event or milestone as such where we will necessarily get any information out of it. We may get some additional interaction, we may not. We may get some more questions immediately after, we may not. So it really depends, and I think every review process is the mid-cycle review has a different you would say role. So I think it's more like an internal FDA coordination meeting. Yeah.
There's a question also. You earlier said milestones and deal being significant compared to market cap. Is this something you still stand by? You might say the question here is why don't shareholders then stand by it? So, but I know you can't answer for them. But do you still stand by this statement?
Yeah, if you think about the commercial opportunity, which is 800 million globally, roughly half of that in the US. If we think about sort of a sort of standard split of value between a biotech company and a pharma partner, and we just get sort of a reasonable subset of the US opportunity in itself, it should be quite attractive economics compared to the market value. I mean, that's at least in when I do the math, but everybody's doing their own math, and we don't have sort of an opinion about the share price. But when I got that question in a previous interview, that was more kind of reflecting the magnitude of you could say upfront milestones and royalties compared to the market value. So obviously you need to discount. If you're an investor, you need to discount with the likelihood of this happening, and that's kind of probably what is playing out. So we're very, as I said, we're very optimistic on the regulatory approval process and on the partnering process. So it's our role to deliver on that strategically and operationally in the company, and hopefully prove to everybody that there's a good reason to be excited about Orviglance.
And there's a question on price, and I'll just jump back to one of your slides. I guess you haven't told what the price is, but you kind of indicated it. Is that correct? Around similar. Sorry, I couldn't find the slide, so I go back again. But,
yeah.
Well, you're estimating something similar products could give. So could you repeat? Remind us what that was.
Yeah. So we've done and worked with sort of expert consultancies within drug pricing area, and when we look at the value that we believe that Orviglance brings, when we look at other innovative diagnostics, they are many of them are in the PET imaging space, but solving other important questions in the diagnosis and makeup of patient treatments. They are priced in a range of, let's say, $3,000 to $4,500 per dose in the US. And based on the work that we have done, we see a sort of I think it's fair to assume that there is a comparable pricing window that we'll be looking at. So we've done a lot of work because previously our plan was to launch Orviglance with an Ascelia-led team in the US. That's no longer the strategy; it's to partner. So we have prepared a lot of work, done a lot of market research. That once we have signed with the partner, they will obviously have access to that and use that to drive the pricing and reimbursement process.
Actually, there's a question who fits good in here. Red Eye, it's an analyst. Some other analyst has other estimates that is addressing is estimating the market smaller than you are. I don't know whether you ever read it or where you are disagreeing, or you just want to keep to that you have done extensive work because you actually wanted to launch this yourself, and this is the 800 million, and it has actually been stuck there for quite a while. So I guess you're pretty comfortable with it. Has prices gone up, down, patient groups, and so on. So a little bit, I don't know whether you want to comment compared to the Red Eye, but a little bit comment on why you are comfortable with this 800 million opportunity.
Yeah, you're right. I will not sort of comment on specific analyst reports. I think what I would like to comment on is that the work that we have done to get to the 800 million. So what we've done, and we've done most detailed analysis on the US, where most accurate data is also available. So on the volume of patients that could potentially benefit from Orviglance, we've looked at various different sources. We've looked at claims databases, which is really sort of a database of medical procedures actually being performed and billed in the US system. So something that has really taken place, and down to a level where you can see who was the radiologist responsible for the imaging procedure, and then saying, of all those imaging procedures, which ones would be relevant for Orviglance. estimating the value from there, using sort of advanced epidemiology modeling to understand what, from a literature perspective, and we know how many patients, cancer patients and other and renal disease patients that there are out there. What is the volume? What is the expected volume? And I think though that those two approaches get us sort of pretty close in the same range, which I think is a good sign. So in terms of the patient volume, I think we've invested a lot of money and a lot of time getting comfortable in this number, and that's also the numbers that we are speaking to potential partners with. And the same on the payer, the pricing and reimbursement. Invested a lot of money and time to understand sort of what is the pricing potential and opportunity, and what is required to achieve this price. What is we need to document and show up with in the negotiations with the payers. So I think not going to comment on what other people think. I think we have sort of a very reasonable estimate. We say the 800 million, that's an addressable market, which also means that there are no drugs that will ever get 100% of all potential patients. We've not provided any revenue estimates, but I think the work we've done is good and solid.
And then finally, there's a question here: do you need capital before a partner decision, before a potential approval? And if you go out and seek capital before that, should we then interpret it as this is plan B? So I know it's a little bit, first we need to assume, and then we need to assume something. I don't know, so whether you want to answer that, but on the capital side, is there anything we should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, we were obviously not raising money now. Then we would have made an announcement. But I think it's we got some inbound interest in last year in September, and we raised 30 million. So that was you could say a dilution, but I think we only had a 7% dilution in that transaction. We thought that was a good number because that would take us with a sort of meaningful buffer beyond the expected approval date of the FDA. Yeah. So previously we had money into Q2, then we would not be able to fund the full review process ourselves. So I think that was like a really important financial transaction to lower the financial risk of the company. And I think that's I'm very happy that we have sort of a good buffer on the back end of you could say the expected approval date. I think that's the most important. We expect financing from the partnership in terms of an upfront milestones and royalties, and which is different to you could say negotiate, because potential royalties should hopefully come probably not a lot, but something in this calendar year.
Perfect. And then the final question before I will let you off the hook, Magnus. You have said at some point in time that there has been read that you said before 25 you will have the partner. And I think people read something into it, then something must be wrong. So I think maybe it's good to get clarified what you said at that, I think it was an event in the spring. And I know that's always be said, but maybe we should actually clarify it, because I think people read a lot into it, whether you said, and they have heard that you said it will be before 25. And I guess that was not what you stated on that event. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I don't think, at least not to my recollection, I have never said it's going to happen. I think it's always that it would happen in 25. It's always very difficult to predict something that is outside our control. What I have said in one interview early last year was that, I was asked if, it would be a deal could happen in 25, and I said that would be nice. And I stand by that. That would have been nice. I think we're still in a very, very good place. I think the important thing for me is that we are making good progress, reducing risk in the regulatory process. We are having a good number of conversations with strong, serious strategic partners, and entertaining those dialogues. I think to me that is the key. So I think the timing is a bit more uncertain, because I don't control the decision process on their side.
Perfect. That was the last question. I will let you off the hook, Magnus. Can you have a good weekend, and thank you to all the listeners listening in. May they also have a good weekend.
Yeah, great to be here, Mika. Take care.